This is hell.
Ooh, spooky, spooky. I welcome you home, my fellow freaks. Once again we gather to take a few peeks at a world near forgotten, lingering in the mind. Tonight we pop it open and see what we find. Squeeze tight your favorite pillow, cling to your covers. I present to you the sequel to Scary Godmother. Mainframe Entertainment, a Canadian-based animation studio known primarily for their, at the time, incredibly impressive 3D animated television works, produced Scary Godmother Halloween Spooktacular. The release date, July 18, 2003. Meanwhile, here in America, Cartoon Network sat in its position as one of the cultural juggernauts of children's entertainment. When the spooky season rolled around, their bumpers in between episodes would change to reflect. Their shows would air Halloween specials, and UNICEF would begin its coin-collecting campaign. When running a machine as hungry as a national television channel, you need fuel to add to the fire. And what better way than to reach out and grab child-friendly films that fit that Cartoon Network vibe? Out of those, perhaps none of them fit the bill quite as impressive as Scary Godmother. Yet Cartoon Network did not air Scary Godmother until October of the next year, 2004. I express this as being of some importance because 1 year later, Mainframe would create their Scary Godmother sequel, and that same year, Cartoon Network would debut its release, solidifying the honored tradition of playing both Scary Godmother and its sequel over and over for all to see throughout the month of October. And amongst those many airings, there sat a young me, young, impressionable, and eager to fall in love with this solemn season of celebration. I would watch Scary Godmother not once, but many times a year, every single year. Now in my adulthood, I feel distant from its roots of influence. I long for its embrace once more. Last year, we took a look at Scary Godmother, finding its charms and quirks and overall having a blast in its whimsy. But how will its second entry fare? Well, grab your Halloween treats and buckle in. In just a moment, our festivities begin. I'm the hairiest hair, and this is tonight's feature presentation, Scary Godmother, The Revenge of Jimmy. Recap time! Previously on Scary Godmother. In the previous establishing film, we were introduced to our main gang of misfits, Daryl, Katie, Bert, and Jimmy. On Halloween night, the hooligans tricked Jimmy's young cousin Hannah into entering a scary abandoned neighborhood home and held the door shut, locking her inside. Hannah, terrified of monsters, finds herself suddenly visited by Scary Godmother, a warm and inviting witch with an optimistic admiration for the unnatural world of Halloween. After wiping away her tears, Scary Godmother whisks Hannah away to a realm known as Fright Side. There, Hannah meets a new cast of creepy characters. Eccentric and lovable Scully Pettybones, greedy and detestable Harry the Wolfman, the vampire family of Count Max, Countess Ruby, and their son Orson, and finally, the fearsome but lovable monster known as Bugaboo. Hannah spends the majority of the movie getting to know these characters and learning to love them as the naughty kids sit in worried anticipation, wondering when Hannah will exit the haunted home. To teach Jimmy and the gang a lesson, the Fright Side family conspire to scare them, resulting in a climactic conclusion where our cast gets to flex their terrifying potential, and Hannah gets to be the one who comes to their fabricated rescue. Hannah says farewell to her new friends and is handed a key that, when used in any door, will take her back to Fright Side. And that's the film. It's introductory, it's weightless, it's an easy watch. With this being a sequel, recycling the same cast and locations, as well as having introductions out of the way, I wonder how they'll handle the abundance of time. Can Scary Godmother follow themselves up with another hit? Let's find out. Where the previous film begins with an ambitious establishing shot panning over the crowd of trick-or-treaters, this one goes for something a little more meta. The opening credits roll out, naming each of our characters rather than their voice actors and creators, ending with Harry's name just as Scary Godmother calls out to him. A record scratch as we reveal a room full of monitors and buttons. The monitors display the previous film's events. The buttons are in the shape of skulls, pumpkins, and bats. Harry attempts to distract whatever has Scary Godmother in a tizzy with fake audience applause, but to little effect. Scary Godmother reminds Harry and the audience that last year Harry ate all the snacks and candy, then ordered an exorbitant amount of pizza he couldn't pay for, displaying it on the monitor as evidence. For this reason, he owes her, and she intends to accept payment in manual labor. The labor is in preparation for this year's Halloween and Halloween party. The distinction between these two will be important in a moment, as they are not one and the same. Harry claims that his work here in the studio is helping with Halloween, and Scary Godmother struggles to disagree. With this, Harry is given free rein to properly begin our tale. Jimmy lies on top of his bed bed covers, shoes on like the animal he is, cowering in fear. It seems that Jimmy has been traumatized by last year's events, while the other members of the group have managed to write the scary shenanigans off as just a prank by some random older kids. Jimmy has lived for a year with the shattering realization that monsters are real, and after all this time, he has not fully recovered from that knee-buckling knowledge. Tonight, as Halloween draws ever so near, he shudders in fear of what impending doom may be waiting for him this time around. Halloween is coming, and Jimmy fears he will be the target of these monsters' villainy. The gang crack open Jimmy's door, wondering why he's in bed so early, only to get jumped by a flashlight trap. Blinded, they stumble onto balloons, popping, disorienting them further. Bert lands on the bed, peeling back its sheets to reveal not Jimmy, but an artificial replica of their friend. The gang fearfully recoil, only for Jimmy to make his presence known. He thanks them for field testing his new monster trap. Bert angrily begins to storm off, telling Jimmy he's gotten really weird as of late. Jimmy doubles down on his weird, explaining to everyone that he's prepared for this year's Halloween. He claims that monsters can't stand the light, thus his flashlight trap, as well as the additional information that he sleeps with the lights on. Balloons help ensure monsters can't sneak up on him, and most vitally, he points out that the monsters hide under your bed and in your closet. So, he removed the legs on his bed and threw everything in his closet out, so there's nothing to hide behind. Daryl asks the excellent question of, what do you do for clothes? Jimmy gleefully retorts that he wears the same thing every day, which, while normal in the average cartoon, is enough to incite ews from the others. Better smelly than in a monster's belly, Jimmy says. Bert reminds everyone that they're on the same page. Those weren't monsters last year, they were just some big kids. Katie chimes in, saying they deserved the scare for what they did to Hannah. Jimmy chastises their newfound friendship with Hannah, but Katie claps right back. The rest of them have evolved as characters. Jimmy has not. Daryl goes over their plan for this year's trick-or-treating, laying out the path for the most candy. Jimmy hops up to declare that celebrating Halloween is what makes monsters stronger, and for that reason, this year, they're boycotting Halloween. The others show confusion. Jimmy triples down. He's the group leader, and Halloween, as far as he's concerned, is cancelled. The others protest, and he gives an ultimatum. They're either with him or they're against him. The gang abandon Jimmy to rot in his delusions. Jimmy mocks them out his window, and his mother's voice calls to him, saying that he shouldn't make faces, as his might freeze that way. Speaking of voices, I've heard enough from our pals to make a call out here. There's just something wrong with Jimmy's voice, and it's apparent by like the third line he reads. Where Bert's voice now somewhat seems older and deeper, like a kid would, Jimmy sounds younger and less harsh, and I mean significantly so.
Speak of the devil, and the devil shall appear.
Hey, my motto is, better smelly than in a monster's belly.
It makes him pretty hard to take serious for the remainder of the story just because the character has lost his edge on more than one front. He's scared, weak, and his voice reflects these attributes. However, it doesn't feel intentional or clever, it just feels wrong. The entire cast this runaround consists of a mix of voices old and new. Bert, Daryl, as well as Orson, who we'll convene with a bit later, all get a voice change that sometimes borders on the realm of undetectable. But in the case of Jimmy, it's obvious, in a very unlikable way. I'm just glad that the rest of the cast remained untouched. Hannah, Scary Godmother, Scully, Max, Bugaboo, and especially Harry would feel like complete strangers if anyone other than their original voice actors provided a vocal performance. But while I'm at it, let's take a moment to really praise the voice acting. I said it in the previous Scary Godmother video, but felt like I didn't highlight it well enough. This voice acting goes so above and beyond what is expected or necessary. Tabitha St. Germain, known for many fabulous roles, portrays Scary Godmother with this poignant perfection that completely nails the inviting aura of a mother away from mothers, while also being able to reach down into that terrifying potential that a parental figure contains. She just hits her lines with such sweet significance, and it makes for a performance that is iconic and memorable for a lifetime.
My leaves are done! Burnus interruptus!
In addition, she voices Countess Ruby, an entirely different, demanding task, still managing to land with the exact specifications needed to mirror the energy of the Count's Nosferatu stylings.
We can't stay long. Max, Orson, and I are going to the grocery store.
To replace Tabitha St. Germain would have been a gargantuan task, and I'm so glad it didn't come to that. And the same can be said for so many others. Scott McNeil provides the flamboyant voice of Scully, as well as the heavily accented noises of Count Max. Seasoned with working for Mainframe in the past, his voice choice just seems like an easy one. Looking at his long lineage, McNeil's performance might often fly under the radar, but when he has a hit, boy does it hit. Not just here in Scary Godmother, but with roles like Wolverine in X-Men Evolution.
I don't fight your battles. so don't fight mine.
Voltar from League of Super Evil.
No one can dunk better than the great Voltar!
And who could forget
Mystery Incorporated.
Scott McNeil has range, folks, and it shows. Gary Chalk, another mainframe veteran, works his magic as he voices the overindulgent Wolfman, Harry. His voice is filled with the overdone theaterisms of an old dramatic fanatic, with just the right amount of charm that even at his most despicable, he can still remain somewhat lovable. Yet on the opposite end of the spectrum is the most lovable, Bugaboo, still voiced by Gary Chalk. The impressive ability to embody one full of overperformance, while also naturally evoking that of a character that feels so real and lacking in performance, it's impeccable.
Oh, my dear girl, I believe they're playing our song.
Monsters aren't mean. Big and scary, yeah, but not mean.
Big and scary is right.
Aw, you're just trying to butter me up.
I could go on, but I will refrain. The voice performance is off the charts, speaking to the impressiveness of our actors as individuals and enhancing the quality of the product overall by magnitudes immeasurable. With that tangent over, we return to our humble heroine, Hannah, sing-songing the Scary Godmother theme as she hangs decorations, cut off by a quizzical look at an empty box on her bed. As she inspects it, something stirs from underneath. No real surprise, it's Bugaboo, dropping by for a little visit while he's in the neighborhood. During the catch-up between the two, Hannah lets forth the information that the gang are coming over to plan their Halloween activities. Bugaboo rightfully questions the fact that she's friends with the punks who tried to punk her last year, but Hannah assures him, and us by extension, that the older kids are fine. Still, underneath the bed, Bugaboo compliments Hannah's decorations.
Say, nice Halloween decorations.
Hannah thanks him, but complains that she ran out of cobwebs. Bugaboo volunteers Scary Godmother's assistance, saying that she's real busy, but probably has some extras and would enjoy seeing Hannah. He asks if she still has the key given to her at the end of the first film, and Hannah yanks it out of her pocket to show him. With that, he says goodbye and heads off to scare some more kids. But okay, so this means that in the past year, Hannah has seemingly never paid Scary Godmother a visit? She gave you a key so you could return anytime you want, and you just sat on it till next holiday. Hannah's skipping the God part and just treating her like a mother, visiting her only on the holidays. Perhaps proving just how simple a visit could have been, Hannah plugs her key into the closet and gives it a turn, transforming the wardrobe into a walkway that slowly morphs into a supply space of a spookier setup. As she steps out the other side, she's immediately greeted by Scary Godmother and Scully as they continue prepping. An alarm sounds, and from the oven, Scary Godmother yanks a cartoonishly long tray covered in leaves. She directly states that leaves don't change color on their own, which implies that she changes every single one, maybe? Or maybe there are other Halloween icons that assist in this? I'm not sure, but the thought does tickle my mind. It's a small detail that adds to the Halloween lore in a way reminiscent of the old Rankin Bass, the stop-motion Christmas specials. In those, they would often attempt to add to or retroactively explain some of the Christmas-isms of our time, which certainly created its own heap of holiday specials, and with those came countless new traditions. Part of me can't help but make the comparison, while also lamenting that we didn't end up in the timeline where Scary Godmother had countless sequels and it expanded itself into a unique position of importance in the culture of Halloween traditions. However, as this film continues, I encourage you to notice that there are a few more moments where I really felt like that's exactly what the sequel was attempting to establish itself as, a Halloween alternative to these holiday specials. Had they been successful, they would likely have ended up filling a void most wouldn't have even noticed. The fact that modern day sensibilities have placed such an impact on Christmas and its multifaceted potential to be milked dry by commercialization and capitalism, but haven't come anywhere close to cannibalizing my favorite holiday, almost reaches a point where I'm more offended than grateful. Like what? Halloween not good enough for you? Come on. We could be more than candy and decorations. This could be something so much bigger.
One of these people murdered Laura Palmer. It was a mystery that captured the imagination of the whole country. Tonight, the killer will finally be revealed. Really.
I am just so happy.
Sorry, I got away from myself there. Back to the movie. Scary Godmother drags Harry's sleeping carcass out of the basement and sends him off to paint the clouds in the sky, again implying that this isn't a natural occurrence, but an elaborate design of beings otherworldly. Hannah lets our ghost cat Boozle inside, and near immediately, Boozle begins to hack and retch.
Ew, a hairball! No, a hairball!
The Scareball's icky gooey splat directs our attention to the calendar, a magic calendar that will continue to play a part in our narrative. Hannah comments that Halloween is pretty big, confessing her obvious love for the holiday. Did you even need to say that out loud, Hannah? Scully rebuttals with, could you imagine anyone not loving Halloween? Fade into Jimmy as he mutters how much he hates Halloween. His off-screen father chastises him for muttering to himself at dinner time. His mother tells him not to make faces or it'll get stuck that way. Tonight, they feast on spaghetti and meatballs, but the plate looks awfully monstrous. We cut back to Scary Godmother as she frantically sails around the room preparing for the festivities. Hannah finally manages to get out that she's just here for cobwebs, and just like that, they are produced. In another hilarious writing shortcut, Scully bemoans that he can't open the decorations cupboard. Scary Godmother tells him to Jimmy the lock. Hannah gasps, remembering she was supposed to call Jimmy. Hannah asks to use Scary Godmother's phone. She obliges, producing her spell phone. Hannah communicates to Jimmy that tomorrow the gang are going to go look at pumpkins and was wondering if he'd want to come along. Jimmy, obviously, refuses the offer. So in response, Hannah says,
But you can't have Halloween without pumpkins.
It was then that our Jimmy got himself an idea. A nasty, mean, selfish, devilish idea.
Are you still there, Jimmy? Jimmy?
If Halloween doesn't happen, the monsters can't get me. It's so simple.
Jimmy's face curls into a snarling grin. His hair points behind his ears. His brow becomes uni. Just as his mother stated, though, his face freezes like that. Back at the Godmother estate, the vampire family make their return. Orson questions what Hannah will be this year. Hannah revealing that she's still incredibly ambitious and incredibly undecided. Asking Orson what he will be this year sparks a conversation leading to Countess Ruby pulling out her sketches of traditional wear she has designed for the Prince of the Night. Out of embarrassment, Orson ushers the family to leave. Just before Hannah makes her exit, Scully can't help but spoil the fact that he will be dressed this Halloween as a cowboy. I know it seems like that was a bunch of unnecessary detail. I promise it does matter. Back in reality, Jimmy slunks to the pumpkin patch. Graphically, we witness as he kicks every pumpkin in, purposefully ruining them as well as his leg. Jimmy hobbles away in victory. The next morning, the gang wander onto the scene in horror. Without jack-o'-lanterns, Katie desperately expresses, "We can't have Halloween." In Frightside, the message is received. The icon on the calendar shrinks. The clouds that Harry just finished painting disappear. The leaves plummet to earth. The jack-o'-lanterns recede into the ground, sucking our characters along with them. The camera spirals back to the pumpkin patch as our protagonists attempt to think of fruit and vegetable alternatives. However, the ever-inventive Hannah draws on the pumpkins, encouraging the others to look at the situation with a different perspective. The pumpkins aren't ruined. Someone just made the mouths in advance. The excitement rejuvenates the calendar icon and sets everything back into motion, returning to normal. Jimmy watches as his efforts were in vain, but leans in to hear the continuing conversation. The gang complain about the worst candy, which is definitely candy corn, right? Like, I know it's a thing to rag on it, but like, actually, honestly, who likes that stuff? Katie, in her infinite wisdom, shouts that it doesn't matter. As long as you have candy and costumes, you got Halloween. Jimmy, somehow managing to be completely ignored by his only friend group wandering past his house. And like, I don't buy that. I stare at the houses of people I know when I'm going past for no real reason other than to say, I saw you later, you know? Like, there's no way none of them noticed they were passing by Jimmy's house, right? I'm not the only one who does this, right? Jimmy hears this and hobbles himself out the front door. His dad stops him to encourage him to wear something warmer. With Jimmy's closet pre-established as empty, he's only got one option. He dons his devil suit from last year and manages to sneak into what appears to be a convenience store. The real convenience is that this little kid just manages to commit this crime without anyone noticing. Jimmy laughs maniacally as he raises his red marker, ready to commit even more crimes. Seemingly the next morning, maybe? That doesn't make sense in the timeline of this movie. I don't know. I'm not sure about the time. The gang arrive at the store. Hannah says that someone has written poison on this candy too, implying that this is an event that occurred in more settings than just this one. The costumes are marked flammable. True or not, the store deems these items as unsellable due to being tampered with. With another nightmare come true, Halloween is once again in jeopardy. As such, the calendar reflects with its shrinking icon. Scary Godmother's house begins to fall apart sucking into an infinite void. The Frightside folks hover outside on the magic broomstick, witnessing the collapse of their entire reality, succumbing to the pitch black nightmare beneath. In desperation, Boozle is sent to our reality to beg Hannah for assistance. She needs to help save Halloween. Hannah questions how they can when there's not even candy to purchase. Scary Godmother is confused by the fact that they buy treats and shrugs, her hologram self disappearing. Hannah comes to a revelation. They don't need to buy treats. They can make them. Cue what is an incredibly charming sequence of Hannah giving instructions on how to make a very special and unique little treat that only Halloween can provide. S'mores. It's just microwave s'mores with extra steps. It's still cute, it's still respectable, and it definitely got a young me to consider busting out all the items needed, though for reasons I won't specify, I never did. I don't like chocolate, that's why. In this moment, the gang decide that they want to serve those treats at their party, a party that they just decided on having right now. They settle on making homemade costumes to go with their homemade treats. Only question remaining, where do we have said party? Well, where better than the conveniently placed spooky abandoned house from the last movie? The legality of this whole film is getting so out of hand, it's crazy. Like, vandalism is one thing, but to throw a party in someone's abandoned home without permission is just so punk rock. You gotta respect what they were teaching kids like me back then. Jimmy accidentally wipes some marker on his face and simultaneously receives a paper airplane in his ear hole. It's an invitation to the party. Jimmy sticks his head out the window, and the gang compliment his Halloween spirit, seeing as he's already dressed up and ready to go. With a wicked snarl, Jimmy assures them he'll be at the party extra early. The gang walk away with a cheer into the sky as the Halloween spirit is rejuvenated. Thus, over on Frightside, the house reappears and narrowly misses murdering the folks, all except Scary Godmother, crushed under the home in a Wizard of Oz fashion. For a brief moment, I'd like to mention that this film, much more than its previous, is really into some reference humor, which, don't get me wrong, isn't all bad, and also an expected staple from Mainframe. After watching a lot of Reboot, I can attest they love making references, but in this I just kinda hate it sometimes. Witch's shoes under the house is cute. The Grinch reference is on point, but there's also an Aliens and a New Hope reference thrown in.
Game over, man! Game over! Help us, Hannah! You're our only hope!
There may be several others I haven't even really caught yet, and while it does make the rewatch entertaining, catching things I wouldn't have gotten as a young lad, it does occasionally make me groan, like, okay, I get it, you're very clever, let's get on with it. Unsurprisingly, Scary Godmother's fine, so everyone gets right back to it, since, you know, Halloween is no longer being threatened. Or is it? Jimmy enacts his next attempt at stopping Halloween with another cartoon classic trope. TPing the house the gang were going to throw their party at. So I never really knew if TPing was like short for toilet paper, TP, or if it was in reference to teepees, like the sort of tent. I know the latter doesn't necessarily make sense, but also maybe it kind of does, if you give it a little imaginative juice. Speaking of, I mentioned this as a cartoon trope because it comes up a lot, especially in Halloween specials. TPing a home is treated as this classic prank seen over and over, but in my youth I can remember exactly one instance where this occurred, and the kids had to pick it all up afterwards anyways. And I guess in a post-lockdown world, you aren't gonna see too many people throw away valuable bath tissue.
Happy Halloween, you nutty kids!
When the gang arrive, they, surprise surprise, can't believe the atrocity before them. They'll never be able to clean it all up in time for the party. Halloween is over. Halloween is Jover. Guys, Halloween's so Jover. Cue the calendar shrinking. This time, though, Halloween is completely erased. Scary Godmother commands that Boozle sound an alarm. When we gather the cast to watch the world begin to disappear again, along with Harry's shirt, Skelly's bone structure, Bugaboo's size, Scary Godmother's color, and the vampire family's vampirism. Hannah, however, doesn't feel the defeat. She sees the toiletries in a different light. To her, they are like little ghost decorations. And she's so right, it looks so much better. Unless, of course, it rains, in which case cleanup will be a nightmare, but oh well, not our property, not our problem. Jimmy, more gnarled and freakish than ever, has been thwarted once more, so naturally everyone in Frightside is restored. The kids take this moment before entering the home as an opportunity to discuss the homemade costumes they put so much effort into. They're the same. They just wore the same costumes as last year, but each one calls their costume something slightly different, so I guess who am I to critique?
Check it out! Last year I was a baseball player driving his SUV. This year I'm a baseball player driving an electric car. Yeah, even pro athletes gotta take care of the environment.
Last year, I was a cat. This year, I'm a panther. Rawr! Oh, right.
Why'd she say it like that? Why'd she say it like... Hannah, you're about to do the same bit. What's going on? Why did you say it like that? Hannah reveals that she has one final surprise for everyone as she slips her magic key into the door of the abandoned home. As they walk in, Hannah reminds everyone that there's a big prize for whoever has the best costume. The rickety door shuts, but not completely. Just in the nearby tree, Jimmy's pointy ears have perked. Prize means there's one last chance to ruin Halloween. The gang sneak into the house, get spooked, and then flick on the lights. The pumpkin-shaped prize rests. Scully manages to scare Harry away from it, avoiding a repeat of last year. What is a repeat of last year, however, is a sick dance montage. This go-around feels more organized than last year's, but lacks a certain stank that it once had. However, it's clearly paced so that the characters jiggy to and fro while Jimmy sneaks in and steals the pumpkin, only to be impeded once more due to hippy-hoppy dance time shenanigans that lock him inside the coffin-shaped table. The prize returns to its position on said table. After the montage concludes, the Count and Countess stand by a closet door as they wait for Orson to put on his traditional garb. Hannah pulls a sneaky bit of mental manipulation, though, to convince Count Max that it would be way cooler if they allowed Orson to dress up for Halloween. Cool being the magic word. Orson avoids embarrassment as Scully volunteers his cowboy hat and gun belt, giving him the chance to express himself and enjoy the party. See, I told you all that would be important for a mild payoff. Scary Godmother scoops Hannah up and graciously thanks her for saving Halloween, specifically complimenting the fact that Hannah used her imagination to make the most of a series of misfortunes. Hannah naturally thanks her for throwing the party to begin with, and the two return to the living room just in time to hear the winner of Best Costume. But where's the grand prize? Jimmy laughs to himself, saying the candy is all his. The word candy tickles the ears of the nearby Wolfman, and the two catfight around the house, concluding by colliding with the late arrival. Bugaboo barely makes it in the door before getting knocked to the floor. Scully catches the prize. Harry falls outside. Jimmy bah humbugs. The boy and the monster turn to face each other. They let out a simultaneous scream, ending in Bugaboo's joy. He laughs, impressed that Jimmy managed to scare him. Scary Godmother proposes that anyone that can scare Bugaboo deserves to win Best Costume. And then insert the weird part where Jimmy says, yeah, in like a really just straight up bizarre way.
Yeah.
They pass him the prize, and Hannah shouts for Jimmy to smash it open. Jimmy looks at his injured kicking leg, he pauses, and then asks for Hannah's help. Together, they smash the pumpkin piñata on the ground, and it bursts into a satisfying flurry of candy. Everyone frenzies and attacks the pile of candy. And okay, guess there was no real point in being the winner of the contest. I thought the candy would be Jimmy's to divvy out, but whatever. Not my party, not my rules, I guess. Harry leans in the door, Scully shuts it on his face, and we get a slow pull-out from the house to the exterior.
And Scary and Hannah declared as they flew through the night.
Happy Halloween to all, and to all a good fright.
Harry of the Metaverse gives our proper outro by reminding us that this programming isn't possible without viewer donations, begging for candy. He's dragged off as credits roll. Whew. Good Lord. Last year, I found myself extremely impressed with Scary Godmother. I felt like it had exceeded my low expectations, and I came out the other side with this newfound respect. Along the way, I learned so much about the production, and even Jill Thompson's original works and intentions, and that helped in making the journey feel like something very special. This year, however, I find that the sequel doesn't live up to the original. Its visuals are far more advanced. The character models have some excellent tweaks and upgrades. The environments are far more flexible, allowing for a much wider use, and even when we cheap out and throw some 3D models on a 2D background, the charm of it still emanates. However, the plot jumps between the two locations of reality and fright side at a nauseating frequency. And while it narratively makes sense to do so, it made writing this video a headache. And the more I wrote, the more I thought to myself, I just don't care. The Revenge of Jimmy exhausted me. Where the first film felt quaint and compact, this one felt cramped and overworked. I still love all the characters, but they didn't get a chance to really shine at any point. Take Bert, for example. In the first video, I had an entire section dedicated to breaking down the characters, and in it, I called him an agent of chaos. Every scene he was in reinforced this description. Here, in this film, Bert is played completely straight. Nothing zany or abnormal. Katie is the same. Daryl gets a couple of fun moments, but even he is just so bland. And that goes for a good chunk of our cast. And that's the sacrifice the script had to make. Less character for more drama. And it just makes me wonder, was it worth it? Where the first film was carried by dialogue and character interactions, this one is carried by moment-to-moment plot beats. And as such, I found myself feeling like I missed my old buddies from the first film. This parasocial relationship with fictional characters. I miss talking to them, getting to know them, having nothing to talk about, but talking anyways. Yet, when focused on the narrative, messy as it is, I'd argue that this short film, more so than the original, convincingly portrays that pro-Halloween message that Thompson clearly intended. In the first video, I mentioned that Scary Godmother is meant to evoke feelings reminiscent of the Addams Family. Creepy, weird, and bizarre, but not in a threatening way. Instead, in a comforting manner. To me, Revenge of Jimmy manages to really compact the message of how much admiration people like Thompson, myself, and likely you watching have for Halloween and its festivities. It really wants to help push the narrative that Halloween, just like Christmas, isn't about the commercialization that modern day makes it, but instead that Halloween is a sort of vibe. It's a communion. It's this sort of odd tradition that only perpetuates because we continue to celebrate it, and nothing can really take that away. So yes, I definitely think that this film is not that great, but it does still fill that role of Halloween fodder to put up on the television as you hang up decorations. It does still invite that sort of coziness into your home that the glow of a jack-o'-lantern possesses. The Revenge of Jimmy, at the end of the day, still makes me sit there and say, man, I love Halloween. And for that reason, put it on the stack of October traditions and let its simplistic charm captivate you. Let's keep our fingers crossed that maybe one day Scary Godmother may return. And if not, I'm sure we'll find many spooky alternatives to fill our hungry Halloween hearts. Catch you in the shadows. Be excellent to each other.